Hello friends. Welcome to the Ben 10 What Ifs. How are you all? So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Ben 10 mastered the dark matter Omnitrix in love with Charmcaster. Julie and Kai. Also be sure to subscribe and like this video. Now let's begin. Chapter 1. Dark Genesis. The universe had a pulse. Ben Tennyson felt it beneath his fingertips as he traced the familiar contours of the Omnitrix, the alien device that had defined his existence since childhood. At 22, he'd long outgrown the impulsive kid who'd stumbled upon the most powerful tool in the galaxy. The summer breeze rustled through his chestnut hair as he stood atop the abandoned observatory outside Bellwood, watching the convergence of stars that Azimuth had warned him about. Celestial alignment Beta 9, Ben murmured, recalling the Galvan's cryptic message. Happens once every 12,000 years. The night sky fractured with bands of iridescent light, rippling like cosmic auroras across the velvet darkness. Ben had witnessed countless astronomical phenomena throughout his career as a universal protector, but something about tonight's sea convergence sent cold electricity crawling up his spine. The Omnitrix pulsed with an unfamiliar energy signature, its familiar green glow occasionally flickering with motes of deepest purple. His communicator chirped. Gwen's holographic form materialized from his badge, her expression tense. Ben, are you seeing this? The mana fields are going haywire. Kevin and I are detecting massive energy spikes across 6 dimensions. I'm at the observatory. The Omnitrix is acting strange, like it's responding to whatever's happening up there. Ben lifted his wrist toward the aberrant sky. Azimuth said to observe and report, but a sudden pressure wave rippled through the atmosphere, momentarily stealing the breath from his lungs. The observatory's metal dome groaned under invisible strain. But since when do I just sit back and watch? Ben finished with a half-smile that didn't reach his eyes. I'll call you back, Gwen. Ben, wait, Professor Paradox specifically said. He cut the transmission as the Omnitrix sparked violently, releasing a shower of emerald particles that danced around his forearm before dissolving into the air. Years of experience had taught him to trust his instincts, and right now every nerve-ending screamed that something unprecedented was unfolding. Ben twisted the dial, cycling through his roster of transformations. If this goes sideways, I want something with environmental adaptation. Chromastone should. The universe split open. There was no other way to describe it. A vertical fissure tore through reality approximately 20 feet above the observatory dome, revealing not stars or empty space but a churning vortex of matter darker than black. It didn't reflect light, it consumed it. Mathematical patterns that hurt Ben's eyes to look at directly rippled across its surface. The Omnitrix went haywire, its interface cycling rapidly through alien profiles without Ben's input. Before he could react, a tendril of the impossible darkness lashed out, wrapping around his wrist. The sensation wasn't painful. Instead, it felt like every atom in his body suddenly remembered being part of a star. Not good. Ben gritted through clenched teeth, attempting to activate the transformation sequence. Come on, come on. The darkness surged through the Omnitrix and into his bloodstream. Ben dropped to his knees as foreign information flooded his conscio. USNESS. Glimpses of dimensions where physics operated by entirely different rules, species that existed as mathematical concepts rather than biological entities, and power that flowed like liquid thought between realities. Through watering eyes, he watched the Omnitrix transform. The familiar green gave way to deep violet with pulsing midnight blue accents. The hourglass symbol remained, but now contained what looked like a miniature galaxy of dark stars. Most concerning, tendrils of the same material appeared to have partially fused with the skin around the device, creating an intricate swerk of astronomical patterns that extended halfway up his forearm. That's definitely not in the user manual, Ben managed through gritted teeth. The dimensional rift collapsed upon itself with a thunderclap that shattered the observatory windows. Ben barely had time to shield his face as glass rained down around him. When he looked up, the night sky had returned to normal, except for a persistent afterimage of that mathematical darkness whenever he blinked. Ben stood on unsteady legs, examining the transformed device. The familiar weight felt different somehow, not heavier, but as though it now contained something vast compressed into impossible density. When he experimentally turned the dial, holographic alien silhouettes appeared, but each seemed subtly altered with traces of that same cosmic darkness integrated into their forms. Azimuth is going to kill me, Ben muttered, tapping his communicator again. Gwen, Kevin, anyone receiving? Static answered him. Whatever had happened, Ed had apparently disrupted standard communications. He needed to get back to Plumber HQ and figure out exactly what had happened to the Omnitrix. A motion in his peripheral vision made Ben pivot sharply, instinctively reaching for the transformed device. A figure emerged from behind the observatory's damaged telescope housing. Tall, composed, with calculating eyes that widened slightly at the sight of him. Tennyson. Kai Green stepped fully into view, her plumber uniform bearing the insignia of Special Cultural Operations. A standard-issue energy pistol remained holstered at her hip, but her hand hovered near it. What did you do? Why does everyone always assume I did something? Ben replied automatically, the familiar banter with his occasional ally feeling strangely comforting amid the chaos. For once, I was actually following orders. Mostly. Kai closed the distance between them with measured steps, her dark eyes fixed on the transformed Omnitrix. The observatory lights cog, the subtle red highlights in her black hair as she moved. Ben noticed she'd adopted a more practical version of her traditional braid, wrapped tightly at the nape of her neck. The plumbers detect a CLASS 7-dimensional anomaly centered on this location, she said, professional demeanor momentarily giving way to genuine concern as she examined his arm. What happened to the Omnitrix? Some kind of dark matter, I think. Ben replied, resisting the urge to pull his arm away from her scrutiny. Their history was complicated at best, with attraction, respect, and frustration intertwined in ways neither had fully untangled. The convergence opened a rift, and this stuff came through. It hijacked the Omnitrix's systems before I could transform. Kai's fingers hovered over the latticework patterns extending up his arm, not quite touching them. These markings, they're similar to ancient petroglyphs found in the Navajo astronomical records. My grandfather showed me rubbings that depict something called the breath between stars. Ben's eyebrows rose. You're saying your ancestors encountered this stuff before? Not directly. The stories speak of shadow between worlds that ancient sky watchers observed during certain alignments. She finally met his eyes directly. They considered it both dangerous and sacred, a force of creation and destruction. Great. Cosmic forces with multiple personality disorder. Just what I needed. Ben winced as the transformed Omnitrix pulsed, sending what felt like electric ice through his veins. Whatever it is, it's not playing nice with my nervous system. Kai reached for her communicator. We need to get you to containment. If this dark matter is as volatile as the readings suggest. The ground beneath them trembled. Hairline F. Raptures raced across the observatory floor, glowing with the same violet-black energy that now infused the Omnitrix. Ben instinctively grabbed Kai's arm, pulling her away from a widening fissure. I don't think we have time for containment, he said, eyeing the spreading cracks. This whole place is becoming unstable. Kai nodded sharply, professionalism reasserting itself. Emergency evacuation protocol. My ship is at the base of the hill. Too far, Ben replied, examining the transformed device. I need to try using this. Are you insane? Kai's calm facade cracked. You have no idea what that dark matter has done to your transformations. When has that ever stopped me before? Ben offered her a reckless grin that didn't quite mask his own apprehension. Trust me, Kai, please. Something in his expression must have reached her, because she gave a curt nod. If you start turning into some cosmic horror, I reserve the right to stun you. Fair enough. Ben turned his attention to the Omnitrix, cycling through the altered silhouettes until he found one he recognized. Let's start with something resilient. XLR8 should get us clear without too much risk of. When he slammed the dial down, the transformation felt fundamentally different. Rather than the familiar rush of DNA reconfiguration, Ben experienced something closer to translation, as though his consciousness were being reinterpreted through an alien mathematical framework before reassembling in physical form. The world blurred, then snapped into focus with enhanced clarity. Ben recognized the familiar form of XLR8, but immediately noticed significant differences. The typically blue and black exterior now incorporated swirling patterns of deep cosmic violet. His visor displayed information in symbols he saw. Mahao understood despite never having seen them before. Gravitational vectors, time dilation potentials, quantum probability cascades. Most striking was the sensation of his movement capabilities. The usual super speed felt shallow compared to what he now sensed. Not merely velocity through space, but potential manipulation of localized temporal fields. Ben. Kai's voice sounded distant and artificially slowed. Though he knew it was his perception that had accelerated, not her speech that had decelerated. Dark XLR8, he replied, his voice carrying harmonic undertones that echoed strangely in the crumbling observatory. At least, that's what the Omnitrix is calling this version. Hold on. He scooped her up, noting with detached fascination how his perception of her weight had changed. As now registering as a complex equation rather than simple physical sensation. Before Kai could protest, Ben tapped into the enhanced capabilities, and the world around them folded. Rather than conventional super speed movement, Dark XLR8 appeared to bend space slightly around them, creating a localized wormhole effect that deposited them nearly a mile from the observatory in an instant. Ben felt the mathematics of it in his transformed mind, a simple dimensional shortcut rather than linear acceleration. Kai stumbled as he set her down, eyes wide with shock. That wasn't speed, she said accusingly. That was spatial manipulation. You teleported us. The transformation reversed itself without Ben's command, leaving him human again and surprisingly steady on his feet. The dark matte, chair-infused Omnitrix pulsed with satisfied energy. Not exactly teleportation, Ben replied, knowledge from the transformation lingering in his human consciousness longer than usual. More like folding localized space-time around a quantum reference point. The dark matter seems to enhance each transformation with extra-dimensional properties. Kai stared at him. Since when do you understand quantum physics? I don't, Ben admitted, examining the device with newfound wariness. But Dark XLR8 did. And somehow I'm retaining more of the transformation's knowledge than normal. Before Kai could respond, the hill behind them erupted as the observatory collapsed into a swirling vortex of dark energy. The implosion lasted only seconds before vanishing with a thunderclap, leaving nothing but a perfectly hemispherical crater where the structure had stood. That should have taken half the hillside with it, Kai murmured, scanning the aftermath with a handheld plumber device. The energy signature just folded into itself. Like what you just did with space. It's containing itself, Ben realized. The dark matter is following mathematical principles that prevent it from cascading uncontrollably. Since when are you an expert on extra-dimensional physics, Tennyson? The familiar voice made them both turn. Julie Yamamoto stood several yards away, a compact hovering device projecting holographic readings circling her head. Her practical black and blue research jumpsuit bore the insignia of Galvan Technological Outreach, Azimuth's elite human research division. Julie. Ben's surprise quickly turned to genuine pleasure at seeing his ex-girlfriend. Their romantic relationship had ended years ago, but their friendship had evolved into something equally valuable, particularly since Julie had become one of Earth's foremost experts on alien technology integration. What are you doing here? Tracking dimensional anomalies, she replied, dark eyes flickering to the transformed Omnitrix before meeting his gaze. A small smile softened her professional demeanor. Though I should have guessed you'd be at the epicenter. You always did have a talent for finding trouble. Or it for finding me. Ben replied with a self-deprecating shrug. The small blob-like galvanic mechamorph that had bonded with Julie years ago, affectionately named Ship, detached from the back of her jumpsuit. Reforming beside her with excited beeps. Ship. Yes, it's definitely him, Julie answered her companion before addressing Ben and Kai. My sensors detected the anomaly from my lab in Los Soledad. The energy signature matches theoretical models for interdimensional dark matter, something that shouldn't exist in our reality. Kai frowned. Yet here it is, infused with the most powerful device in the universe. Which is why we need to get you to containment immediately, Julie said, her tone brooking no argument as she approached Ben. The floating scanner around her projected a W-dening field that enveloped the transformed Omnitrix. These readings are off the charts. The dark matter is actively rewriting the Omnitrix's fundamental protocols. Ben felt a defensive instinct rise. I'm not going into containment. Julie, whatever this is, it's not just affecting the Omnitrix, it's connected to me now. I can feel it, all the more reason. Julie began, but was interrupted by a crackling surge of energy that manifested between them. The air shimmered with iridescent particles that coalesced into a swirling portal rimmed with arcane symbols. A figure stepped through, silver-haired, violet-eyed, dressed in a modernized version of her sorceress attire that combined ancient magical symbols with practical combat functionality. "Well," Charmcaster said, surveying the three of them with an arched eyebrow. "This explains the massive disturbance in the magical realms. Hello, Ben. Your aura has gone quite interesting." Ben had encountered Charmcaster, or Hope, as she occasionally preferred to be called, numerous times over the years. Their relationship had evolved from bitter enemies to reluctant allies, particularly after she had helped during the Chronosopian crisis 3 years prior. Still, her unexpected appearance raised his guard. "Charmcaster," he acknowledged cautiously. "Let me guess, you sense the dark matter breach." "Every magical practitioner across 12 dimensions felt it," she replied, approaching with confident strides. Unlike Julie's scientific caution or Kai's professional assessment, Charmcaster studied the transformed Omnitrix with open fascination. "The legerdemain is in chaos. The dark matter you've encountered exists in the spaces between realities, it's what separates dimensional boundaries." "That's impossible," Julie protested. "Dark matter is a theoretical component of our universe's mass, not an interdimensional substance." Charmcaster's smile was patronizing. "Your science has barely scratched the surface of what exists between realities. This substance, what my people call void essence, is the raw material from which dimensions themselves are constructed." Kai stepped between them, her posture subtly defensive. "And what exactly brings a sorceress of legerdemain to an earthly dimensional breach?" "Self-preservation," Charmcaster replied bluntly. "If the boundaries between dimensions destabilize, magical realms like legerdemain will collapse first. I've been tracking these anomalies for months, but this is the first direct manifestation." Her gaze returned to Ben. "And of course it would find its way to you, Tennyson." The tension between the three women was palpable. Ben watched the interplay with growing awareness that he stood at the center of a convergence that went beyond merely the astronomical. Each woman represented a different facet of his life's journey, Kai with her connection to his earliest adventures and the plumber legacy, Julie with her scientific brilliance and shared history, and Charmcaster embodying the magical complexities he'd never fully understood. Before he could address the mounting tension, pain lanced through his arm. The dark matter patterns extending from the Omnitrix flared with midnight energy, spreading further up toward his shoulder. Ben dropped to one knee, gritting his teeth against a wave of disorienting information, star charts, dimensional coordinates, mathematical proofs beyond human comprehension. All three women moved toward him simultaneously. "Don't touch him," Julie warned, scanner whirring frantically. "The dark matter is destabilizing." "It's not destabilizing," Charmcaster countered, hands already weaving patterns of magical containment. "It's expanding, seeking equilibrium with its host." Kai crouched beside Ben, close but carefully not touching him. "Ben, focus. Control your breathing, like we practiced during plumber tactical training." Through the haze of cosmic information flooding his senses, Ben latched onto Kai's voice, finding the rhythm of controlled breathing they'd practiced during joint missions. Gradually, the overwhelming sensations receded to manageable levels. The patterns on his arms stopped spreading, but remained vividly etched into his skin. "Thanks," he managed, meeting Kai's concerned gaze before looking up at the other two women. "I'm okay. It's communicating with me somehow. Showing me things." "What things?" Julie asked, scientific curiosity overriding caution as she adjusted her scanner's parameters. "Everything," Ben replied, slowly rising to his feet. "Dimensional coordinates alien species have never encountered. Mathematical principles that shouldn't make sense to me but somehow do." He looked at the transformed device with newfound wonder and trepidation. "I think the Omnitrix is evolving, adapting to incorporate the dark matter's properties." "The dark matter Omnitrix," Charmcaster mused, testing the phrase. "Fitting, if potentially catastrophic." A tremor passed through the ground beneath them, subtler than before but unmistakable. In the distance, Pinpricks of violet light manifested in midair, tiny rifts opening and closing like blinking eyes. "We need to move," Kai said. "Plumber training taking precedence. This entire area could be compromised." "My research facility has containment capabilities," Julie offered, already summoning her transport with a wrist-mounted control. "And shielding against dimensional interference." Charmcaster shook her head. "This goes beyond technological containment. We need magical boundaries as well." "Then we combine approaches," Ben said firmly. Decision crystallizing as he felt the Omnitrix pulse in apparent agreement. Julie's facility for physical containment, Charmcaster's magic for dimensional stabilization, and Kai's plumber resources for security and monitoring. The three women exchanged glances, a momentary truce established in the face of the larger threat. Ben felt a curious sense of rightness in bringing these disparate elements of his life together, as though the dark matter was revealing connections that had always existed beneath the surface. "Ship," Julie's companion chirped, "transform." Into a sleek transport vehicle large enough for all four of them. "I'll establish a preliminary containment field during transit," Charmcaster said, already drawing arcane symbols in the air that settled around Ben like a second skin of luminescent energy. "I'll alert Plumber HQ to establish a perimeter around the affected area," Kai added, her fingers flying over her communicator. "Max needs to know what we're dealing with." As they boarded the transformed ship, Ben felt the weight of their combined attention, concern, scientific interest, magical calculation, and professional assessment. All directed at him and the transformed device on his wrist. The familiar green light that had defined half his life was gone, replaced by cosmic darkness that promised both unprecedented power and unknown danger. "So," he said with forced lightness as ship accelerated toward Los Soledad, "anyone want to place bets on how long before Azimuth shows up to yell at me?" 3 hours, Julie replied immediately, not looking up from her scanner. 6, Kai countered, assuming interstellar travel conditions are optimal. "He's already aware," Charmcaster said with certainty. "The question is either he considers this development part of some greater cosmic plan." Ben raised an eyebrow. "Since when does Azimuth plan for anything involving me other than disaster?" That earned reluctant smile from all three women, a small victory amid mounting complications. As the landscape blurred outside ship's translucent exterior, Ben studied each of them surreptitiously. Kai's disciplined composure barely concealed her tactical mind assessing threats and contingencies. Julie's brilliant intellect was evident in her focused analysis of the data streaming across her holographic interface. Chair's magical awareness manifested in the subtle ways she monitored the dimensional energies fluctuating around them. Three extraordinary women from entirely different worlds, united momentarily by crisis and their connection to him. Ben felt something shift within him, a perspective that seemed influenced by the dark matter's cosmic awareness. Their differences weren't contradictions but complementary aspects of a more complex whole. Like the facets of the transformed Omnitrix itself, each represented different approaches to understanding and navigating reality. The thought was interrupted as ship chirped an alert. Through the viewport, they watched a massive rift tear open in the sky ahead, far larger than the previous anomalies. Unlike the concentrated darkness Ben had encountered at the observatory, this breach pulsed with chaotic energy, its edges jagged and unstable. "That's not right," Ben said, instinctively knowing the difference. "The dark matter shouldn't manifest like that. It's too angry." Julie questioned, even as ship swerved to avoid a tendril of energy that lashed out toward them. "Dimensional breaches don't have emotions, Tennyson," Kai said, though her hand had moved to her weapon. "This one does," Charmcaster countered, her eyes glowing with magical perception. "It's being manipulated. Something is forcing these rifts open unnaturally." The dark matter Omnitrix pulsed in apparent agreement, projecting a holographic interface unlike anything Ben had seen before. Three-dimensional star charts interlaced with mathematical formulas rotated above his wrist, highlighting the destabilized area ahead. "We need to close it," Ben decided, already scrolling through the transformed alien roster. "Before whatever's on the other side comes through." "And how exactly do you plan to close an interdimensional rift with no understanding of your new powers?" Julie demanded, concern evident beneath her practical tone. Ben met her gaze steadily. Quote, "The same way I've figured out every other alien transformation, by jumping in and making it work. Before anyone could object further, he pressed the dial. The transformation sequence felt like diving into the heart of a galaxy, consciousness expanding across multiple planes of existence simultaneously before coalescing into physical form. Graviton. The name came to him instinctively, though he'd never used this alien before. The form was humanoid but composed of what appeared to be concentrated dark matter shaped around a skeletal structure of cosmic energy. Stars and nebulae swirled within the contours of his body, and mathematical equations orbited his form like electron clouds. Most significantly, Ben felt an innate understanding of gravitational fields and their manipulation across dimensional boundaries. Ben, Julie breathed, her scanner going haywire at the readings emanating from his transformed state. Stay back, his voice resonated with harmonic overtones. I can feel the instability, it's being forced open from the other side. Graviton levitated from ship's interior, phasing through the hull as though solid matter were merely a suggestion rather than a barrier. Hovering before the chaotic rift, he extended his hands, fingers splayed toward the dimensional tier. Through this form's perceptions, Ben could see the mathematical incorrectness of the breach. Equat. Ions that should balance perfectly had been deliberately skewed, creating dangerous resonance patterns. With intuitive precision, Graviton began to adjust the gravitational constants surrounding the rift, essentially rewriting the mathematical parameters that defined this section of space-time. The cosmic energy flowing through his transformed body served as both calculator and implementation tool, solving complex dimensional equations and immediately applying the solutions. Inside ship, the three women watched with varying degrees of comprehension. He's recalibrating the dimensional boundary parameters, Julie murmured, her scientific mind struggling to process the readings. Somehow he's manipulating the fundamental constants that separate realities. It's not just science, Charmcaster added, her magical senses perceiving different aspects of the same phenomenon. He's rewriting the arcane symbols that define dimensional thresholds. That's advanced magical theory even most archmages can't comprehend. Kai simply observed, tactical assessment shifting to something closer to awe. He's containing it. Indeed, under Graviton's manipulations, the chaotic rift was gradually stabilizing, its jagged edges smoothing, its erratic energy pulses becoming rhythmic and controlled. As the final adjustments locked into place, the breach began to contract, folding in on itself with mathematical precision. A final surge of resistance pushed outward, something on the other side making a last attempt to maintain the connection. Graviton responded by creating a complex gravitational lens that inverted the dimensional polarity, essentially turning the rift inside out and forcing it closed with a thunderclap of displaced air. The transformation reversed immediately afterward, leaving Ben hovering momentarily before gravity reasserted its hold. He plummeted toward the ground, only to be caught by ship as Julie directed the living vehicle beneath his falling form. That, Ben Gasped as he recovered from the transformation, was intense. That was impossible, Julie corrected, staring at her readings. You just manipulated 11 different physical constants simultaneously. Human minds can't process that level of mathematical complexity. It wasn't just me, Ben admitted, examining the dark matter Omnitrix with newfound respect. This form, Graviton, it thinks differently. Sees reality as equations to be balanced rather than physical space to navigate. What was on the other side? Kai asked, her pragmatic focus cutting through theoretical discussions. You said something was forcing the rift open. Ben frowned, sorting through lingering impressions from the transformation. Something old, patient. It recognized the dark matter signature and was curious. No, hungry might be more accurate. He shook his head. Whatever it was, it retreated when I closed the breach, but I don't think it's given up. Dimensional predators, Charmcaster said grimly. Error entities that exist between realities, feeding on energies that leak through weakened boundaries. If they've sensed the dark matter in this realm, they'll continue attempting to breach through. Then we're dealing with two separate but related problems, Kai summarized, her tactical mind mapping the situation. The dark matter transformation of the Omnitrix and whatever is trying to expel the resulting dimensional instabilities. Julie guided ship back on course toward Los Soledad. First priority is understanding what's happened to the Omnitrix and stabilizing Ben's connection to it. Without that, we can't effectively address the breaches. Agreed, Charmcaster said, surprising them with her concurrence with the scientific approach. The magical disruptions are symptoms. Dark matter Omnitrix is the source we need to understand. Ben listened to their analysis with growing appreciation for how each woman approached the problem from different angles that nonetheless led to compatible conclusions. The cosmic perspective lingering from his transformation as graviton allowed him to see patterns in their thinking that complemented each other in ways they themselves might not recognize. Whatever we're dealing with, he said as Los Soledad's research facility came into view, I have a feeling we're going to need all three of your perspectives to solve it. The Ormer military base had been transformed under Galvan direction into Earth's premier research center for alien technology integration. Sleek buildings of hybrid Earth Galvan design housed laboratories dedicated to understanding and adapting extraterrestrial sciences for human benefit. At its center stood the containment facility, a dome of overlapping energy fields designed to isolate potentially dangerous technologies. Ship descended toward a private landing pad adjacent to Julie's personal research wing. As they disembarked, Ben noted the subtle security measures tracking their arrival. Scan. NERs disguised as architectural elements, defense systems masked as environmental controls. Julie had learned caution through years of working with potentially volatile alien tech. My lab is equipped with dimensional stabilizers, she explained, leading them through security doors that recognized her biometric signature. Originally designed for containing temporal anomalies, but the principles should apply to dimensional fluctuations as well. I'll need to establish magical wards around the perimeter, Charmcaster said, already drawing components from pouches at her belt. Your technology is impressive, but some aspects of interdimensional containment require arcane approaches. Julie's expression tightened momentarily before she nodded. As long as your magic doesn't interfere with my equipment, I'll coordinate with Plumber headquarters, Kai added, establishing a secure communication link. We need monitoring stations for similar rifts globally and a response protocol if more appear. Ben watched the three women naturally assuming complementary roles without discussion, scientific, magical, and tactical approaches integrating despite their different backgrounds. The dark matter Omnitrix pulsed with what almost felt like approval. Julie's primary lab was a marvel of organized innovation. Holographic interfaces projected three-dimensional models of various technologies under study. Automated assistants, smaller versions of ship created through galvanic mechamorph parthenogenesis, maintained equipment and processed data. At the center stood a reinforced containment chamber surrounded by multiple scanning arrays. We'll start with basic analysis, Julie said, professional demeanor firmly in place despite the personal history between them. The chamber can isolate the dark matter energy signature while we determine its properties and effects on the Omnitrix. And on Ben, Kai added pointedly. The integration appears to be affecting him biologically as well as technologically. The patterns extending up his arm are more than decoration, Charmcaster agreed, completing a circle of arcane symbols around the laboratory perimeter. They're conduits allowing the dark matter to interface directly with his nervous system. Ben flexed his fingers, watching as the astronomical patterns on his skin shifted subtly with the movement. It doesn't hurt anymore. It feels natural, like it's always been part of me. That's concerning, Julie said, preparing the scanning equipment. Rapid adaptation suggests neural reconfiguration at a fundamental level, or awakening of dormant potential. Charmcaster countered. Human consciousness naturally spans multiple dimensions, we simply lack the sensory apparatus to perceive beyond our limited three-dimensional experience. Kai stepped between them again, her patience visibly thinning. Theorize later. Contain now. Those rifts could reappear at any moment. Ben entered the containment chamber willingly, settling into a chair at its center as scanning arrays activated around him. Through the transparent walls, he watched the three women working at different stations, Julie configuring scientific instruments, Charmcaster reinforcing magical boundaries, and Kai establishing secure communications with Plumber Command. The dark matter Omnitrix pulsed rhythmically, syncing with his heartbeat. Ben closed his eyes, focusing on the sensations flowing from the device. Unlike the overwhelming flood of information he'd experienced earlier, now it felt more like a conversation, an exchange of concepts between his consciousness and whatever intelligence resided within the dark matter itself. What are you? He thought directly at the transformed device. Impressions rather than words flowed back, vastness beyond comprehension. Mathematical elegance, the spaces between realities where possibilities existed in superposition before resolving into definite dimensions. The dark matter wasn't alive in any conventional sense, but it possessed a form of awareness, a cosmic intelligence that operated according to principles beyond biological evolution. Ben's eyes snapped open as he realized a fundamental truth. It's not corrupting the Omnitrix, he called out, drawing the attention of all three women. It's fulfilling its potential. The Omnitrix was always designed to bridge understanding between different forms of life. The dark matter is extending that bridge beyond conventional dimensions. Julie approached the containment field, studying the readings with furrowed brows. That's consistent with the energy patterns. They're not fighting each other, they're integrating at a fundamental level. Azimuth once told me the Omnitrix was capable of more than transformation, Ben continued, memories connecting with new insights. He said its true purpose was understanding, literally walking in another being's shoes. The dark matter is expanding that purpose to include forms of existence beyond biological life. That doesn't explain the rifts, Kai pointed out from her station. Or what's trying to come through them. Charmcaster had gone very still, her magical senses clearly perceiving something the others couldn't. The dark matter isn't causing the rifts directly. It's making them possible, yes, but something else is exploiting the potential. Her violet eyes narrowed. Somethi, that's been waiting for an opportunity like this. As if summoned by her words, alarms blared throughout the facility. Holographic monitors displayed multiple rifts opening simultaneously across He globe, each pulsing with the same chaotic energy they'd encountered during transit. It's happening everywhere, Kai reported grimly, scanning plumber emergency channels. 27 confirmed breaches on 6 continents. Julie's fingers flew across control interfaces. The pattern isn't random. They're forming a geometric configuration around. She stopped, eyes widening as she recalculated. Around Bellwood. They're surrounding your hometown, Ben. Not coincidence, Ben said with certainty, rising from the chair. Whatever's causing this knows me. Knows the Omnitrix. We need to get to Bellwood, Kai said immediately. If that's the focal point. The containment field surrounding Ben flickered and failed as a localized dimensional distortion manifested within the chamber itself. Reality twisted inward, forming a spiraling vortex of mathematical impossibility. Unlike the raw dark matter Ben had encountered initially or the chaotic rifts that followed, this manifestation was precisely controlled, engineered rather than natural. From the vortex emerged a figure that Ben recognized with a jolt of shock. Humanoid but clearly not human, with pale blue skin and cranial enhancements that marked him as a cerebrocrustacean. Unlike Drive, Psychobos, this individual's cybernetic components were integrated with what appeared to be dark matter technology, violet energy flowing through transparent conduits that augmented his natural exoskeleton. Benjamin Tennyson, the entity spoke, its voice carrying harmonic overtones similar to Ben's graviton transformation. The convergence has begun as calculated. Your acquisition of the dark matter Omnitrix was a variable with high probability. Who are you? Ben demanded, the transformed device on his wrist pulsing with agitated energy. Outside the chamber, he could see Julie and Kai drawing weapons while Charmcaster prepared magical defenses. I am Synaptic, the entity replied with clinical detachment. Lead mathematician of the Void Collective. Your dimensional coordinates have been designated for integration following standard protocols. Integration into what? Ben asked, though the cosmic awareness flowing from the dark matter Omnitrix provided disturbing hints. All realities ultimately return to the void, Synaptic stated as though reciting an equation. Order becomes chaos. Structure dissolves. The mathematical certainty of entropy cannot be denied. His compound eyes fixed on the transformed Omnitrix. However, your acquisition of dark matter manipulation capabilities presents an intriguing anomaly worth studying before final integration. The containment chamber exploded outward as Julie overrode safety protocols, deliberately destabilizing the field to disrupt the intruder's dimensional foothold. Kai fired precision energy blasts that struck Synaptic's exoskeleton with minimal effect, while Charmcaster launched binding spells that momentarily entangled the entity's limbs. Ben, transform, Julie called out, already directing her mechamorph assistants to establish secondary containment protocols. Ben didn't hesitate, cycling through the transformed roster until he found a form that resonated with the current threat. As he slammed the dial down, dark energy enveloped him, restructuring his molecular composition into something both familiar and radically new. Atomics. The transformation completed, revealing a version of one of his most powerful aliens now infused with cosmic dark matter. The traditional green nuclear energy had been replaced with swirling galaxies of violet power. And mathematical equations orbited his form like subatomic particles. Correction. Dark atomics, he announced, his voice reverberating with power that caused the very air to ionize around him. Sigh. Naptic analyzed the transformation with obvious scientific interest. Fascinating. Your control of the dark matter integration exceeds predicted parameters. The Void Collective will adjust calculations accordingly. The only thing you're adjusting is your exit strategy, Dark Atomics replied, channeling cosmic energy between his palms. Dark Cosmic Ray. The beam that erupted from his hands wasn't merely energy but concentrated dark matter, a focused stream of interdimensional potential that struck Synaptic with mathematical precision. Rather than causing physical damage, the attack disrupted the entity's dimensional stability, forcing parts of his form to phase between realities. Synaptic's expression showed something approaching surprise. Unprecedented application of void principles. Your species continues to defy statistical models. His form began to destabilize further, edges blurring as he struggled to maintain coherence in their reality. This encounter has provided valuable data. The collective will revise integration protocols. You're not integrating anything, Dark Atomics declared, preparing another attack. Whatever the Void Collective is planning stops now. Incorrect. Synaptic replied with mathematical certainty even as his physical form continued dissolving into dimensional static. The process began the moment dark matter breached your reality. We are me. Rely administrators of cosmic inevitability. With those ominous words, the cerebrocrustacean collapsed into a singularity point before vanishing entirely. The dimensional distortion that had brought him closed with far more precision than the chaotic rifts they'd encountered previously. The transformation reversed, leaving Ben momentarily disoriented as his consciousness readjusted to human perspective. The three women approached cautiously, each processing what they'd witnessed from their unique viewpoints. That wasn't just any cerebrocrustacean, Julie said, scanning the residual energy signature where Synaptic had stood. The cybernetic augmentations were unlike anything in Galvan records. He called himself the lead mathematician of something called the Void Collective, Kai noted. Already documenting the encounter for Plumber Intelligence, a group that apparently specializes in dark matter manipulation and dimensional integration, Charmcaster added grimly. A euphemism for reality consumption if I've ever heard one. In magical terms, they're essentially planning to collapse the boundaries between dimensions. Ben studied the dark matter Omnitrix with renewed concern. He said the process has already started. The dark matter breach was intentional, they've been planning this. But they didn't anticipate you acquiring dark matter powers, Julie pointed out. That variable with high probability comment suggests they calculated various outcomes. And now they're recalculating because I can use the dark matter against them, Ben concluded, understanding clicking into place. That's why Synaptic retreated, to report that their model needs adjustment. Which means we have time, Kai said with tactical pragmatism. Not much, but enough to prepare a coordinated response. Charmcaster was already consulting arcane references projected from a crystal in her palm. I need to research void entities in the legerdemain archives. There may be historical precedents for this kind of dimensional threat. And I need to analyze your transformed state more thoroughly, Julie added, gesturing toward the damaged containment chamber. Now that we know what we're dealing with, I can calibrate equipment specifically for dark matter properties. Plumber HQ needs complete briefing, Kai said, already establishing secure channels. Grandpa Max will coordinate global response to the rifts while we focus on understanding and countering the Void Collective directly. Ben watched as the three women once again naturally aligned their efforts toward complementary goals without discussion or disagreement. Despite the circumstances, he felt a surge of appreciation for how seamlessly their different approaches integrated, much like the dark matter had integrated with the Omnitrix itself. The collective underestimated one critical factor, he said, drawing their attention. They calculated probabilities based on me facing this alone. They didn't account for the three of you. Something passed between the women, a moment of mutual recognition that transcended their differences. Whatever complications existed in their individual relationships with Ben, the current crisis demanded their collective strengths. We should move quickly, Julie said, collecting essential equipment. The lab's compromised now that they've located us. Agreed, Kai nodded. Plummer Safehouse Delta is equipped for both scientific and tactical operations. I'll establish mobile wards, Charmcaster added, already gathering her magical components. Adaptive protection that can move with us. As they prepared for departure, Ben felt the dark matter Omnitrix pulse with what seemed like anticipation. The cosmic awareness it provided offered glimpses of mathematical probabilities stretching out before them, countless potential futures branching from this moment. In most of those futures, he stood with these three extraordinary women, facing challenges that transcended dimensional boundaries. Different combinations of science, magic, and tactical expertise created different outcomes, but in the most successful branches, all three elements worked in harmony. Whatever comes next, Ben said with quiet confidence as they prepared to face an enemy that threatened reality itself, we face it together. The dark matter Omnitrix flared with midnight radiance, as if sealing his words with cosmic certainty. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, Shadows and Light. Plummer Safehouse Delta looked nothing like a safehouse, which was precisely the point. Nestled among upscale research facilities dotting the outskirts of Bellwood, the three-story building presented itself as Omni-Tech Innovations, a modest tech startup specializing in renewable energy solutions. Its unassuming facade concealed 6 subterranean levels equipped with everything from advanced weapons systems to dimensional containment fields. Charmcaster stood in the central chamber of sublevel 3, bare feet planted on cool metal as she traced intricate patterns in the air. Violet energy coalesced into complex geometric forms that rotated in 3 dimensions, occasionally intersecting to create new configurations. Sweat beaded along her brow, silver hair clinging to her temples as she maintained focus on the elaborate magical construct. The problem, she explained without pausing her work, isn't that dark matter exists between dimensions. The problem is that it's not supposed to be here. Ben watched from the chamber's perimeter, the transformed Omnitrix occasionally pulsing. In apparent response to Charmcaster's magic. 3 days had passed since their encounter with Synaptic, 3 days of intensive research and preparation as they attempted to understand what they were facing. Think of reality as a book, Charmcaster continued, expanding her magical model. Individual dimensions are pages, each containing its own story. Dark matter forms the binding, the substance between pages that keeps them separate while holding the book together. And now the binding is leaking onto the pages, Ben surmised, studying the magical representation with newfound comprehension. The cosmic awareness that accompanied the dark matter Omnitrix had been growing, allowing him to grasp concepts that would have bewildered him weeks ago. Precisely. Charmcaster's eyes gleamed with approval. The Void Collective is essentially dissolving the binding to merge all pages into a single, homogenized reality. The magical model collapsed suddenly as the chamber door slid open. Julie entered, surrounded by hovering holographic displays tracking dimensional disturbances across the globe. Ship trailed behind her, morphed into a compact data processing unit. 29 new rifts in the past 6 hours, she reported. Fatigue evident beneath her professional composure. They're smaller than previous manifestations, but more numerous. The pattern continues to center on Bellwood, extending outward in a logarithmic spiral. They're testing defenses, Kai's voice announced as she joined them, fresh from the combat simulation chamber on sublevel 5. Her plumber uniform show wed signs of intense physical training, scorch marks on the sleeves, a tear along one shoulder. Probing for weaknesses before committing to a larger incursion. Ben observed the 3 women with quiet appreciation. Despite their vastly different backgrounds and occasional tensions, they had fallen into an effective working rhythm. Julie's scientific approach complemented Charmcaster's magical knowledge, while Kai's tactical expertise provided practical applications for their theoretical discoveries. Have we learned anything more about the Void Collective? He asked, pushing away from the wall he'd been leaning against. Julie gestured, expanding one of her holographic displays. I've been analyzing the energy signature from Synaptic's appearance. It's definitely engineered rather than natural. Precision manipulation of dark matter to create stable interdimensional corridors. Which means they've been doing this for a very long time, Charmcaster added, conjuring a small crystal that projected ancient text. The legerdemain archives mention similar incursions dating back thousands of years across multiple realities. They're referred to as the calculators of dissolution in the oldest texts. Cheery, Ben remarked, though his light tone couldn't mask his concern. And their goal is cosmic entropy, collapsing all dimensions into one. Not exactly, Charmcaster corrected, dismissing the arcane text. True entropy would be chaotic. The Void Collective seeks ordered dissolution, a mathematically perfect integration of all dimensional variants into a single, unified reality. Where they make the rules, Kai concluded grimly. The dark matter Omnitrix pulsed, drawing everyone's attention. The astronomical patterns extending up Ben's arm shifted subtly, forming new configurations that resembled the magical model Charmcaster had created minutes earlier. It's responding to our discussion, Ben noted, watching the patterns realign. Learning, adapting, which brings us to our immediate priority, Julie said, approaching with her scanner. You need to master these new transformations before the collective launches their next offensive. Kai nodded in agreement. Your Dark XLR8 and Dark Atomics forms showed tremendous potential, but you were reacting instinctively. We need controlled, strategic application. That's been the story of my life since I was 10. Ben replied with a self-deprecating smile. Find alien, transform, figure it out while something tries to kill me. This time we prepare properly, Kai insisted, her tone brooking no argument. They set up combat scenarios designed specifically for dark matter abilities. And I've configured monitoring systems to track the transformations, effects on both the Omnitrix and your physiology, Julie added. Charmcaster completed the collective approach. I'll establish magical parameters to contain any dimensional disruptions your practice might cause. We can't afford to alert the collective to our preparations. Ben looked between the three women, struck again by how their different methodologies created a comprehensive approach to the problem. The cosmic awareness flowing from the dark matter Omnitrix offered mathematical confirmation of what he was observing. Their combined perspectives created something greater than the sum of individual parts. All right, he agreed, rolling his shoulders to release tension. Where do we start? With me, Kai answered immediately, gesturing toward the training chamber. Julie's monitoring systems are already installed there, and Charmcaster can establish her magical boundaries around the space. As they relocated to sublevel 5, Ben found himself walking alongside Charmcaster, who studied him with evident curiosity. Your aura has changed, she observed quietly. It's developing harmonic patterns of only seen in entities that exist across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Is that a fancy way of saying I'm becoming less human? Ben asked, keeping his voice equally low. Charmcaster considered this thoughtfully. Not less. More, perhaps. Human consciousness has always had the potential to perceive beyond three-dimensional limitations. The dark matter is simply awakening dormant capabilities. That's not exactly reassuring. It wasn't meant to be, she replied with characteristic bluntness. Power always changes its wielder, Ben. The question is whether you direct that change or allow it to direct you. The training chamber occupied most of sublevel 5, a cavernous space with reconfigurable terrain and advanced holographic capabilities. Kai stood at the control console, programming parameters while Julie calibrated monitoring equipment positioned strategically throughout the room. Ship had transformed into an auxiliary processing system integrated with the facility's mainframe. We'll start with baseline capabilities, Kai explained as Charmcaster began establishing magical wards around the perimeter. Each of your standard transformations has been enhanced by dark matter integration. We need to understand exactly how before attempting more complex applications. Ben nodded, surveying the space with tactical consideration that would have been uncharacteristic of his younger self. Years of experience had tempered his impulsiveness, and the cosmic awareness provided by the dark matter Omnitrix added layers of strategic comprehension. XLR8 first, he decided, cycling through the transformed roster. The spatial manipulation capabilities could be crucial for rapid response to dimensional breaches. Julie finished calibrating her equipment, joining them at the control console. Sensors are ready. I'll be monitoring energy emissions, physiological changes, and dimensional stability throughout the transformation. And I'll be tracking any magical resonance or dimensional thinning, Charmcaster added, completing her ward circle with a final arcane gesture. The boundary should contain any unintended effects. Ben moved to the center of the chamber, studying the transformed Omnitrix with newfound awareness of its capabilities. Here goes nothing, or possibly everything. He activated the device with practiced motion. The transformation felt fundamentally different from his standard experiences, not merely a reconfiguration of DNA but a translation of consciousness across dimensional thresholds. Mathematics became sensation, theoretical physics manifested as instinct. Dark XLR8, he announced as the transformation completed. The familiar velocity-adapted form now incorporated swirling patterns of cosmic energy, with calculation matrices visible just beneath the surface of his skin. Vital signs stable, Julie reported, studying her readings. Dark matter integ. Ration appears uniform throughout the transformation. Energy signature is fascinating. It's simultaneously present in our dimension and adjacent dimensional spaces. Begin movement testing, Kai directed. Adjusting the chamber's configuration. Holographic obstacles materialized throughout the space. Barriers of varying density and composition designed to test different aspects of the transformation's capabilities. Dark XLR8 accessed the enhanced understanding that came with the form. Standard XLR8 possessed tremendous velocity, but Dark XLR8 comprehended space-time as a malleable equation rather than a fixed constraint. With mathematical precision, he plotted a course through the obstacle field. Rather than conventional super speed, Dark XLR8 executed a series of micro-foldings of local space-time, effectively shortening the distance between points by manipulating dimensional constants. To observers, it appeared as though he was teleporting in rapid sequence, leaving trails of cosmic energy that traced the path of distorted space. That's not traditional super speed, Kai noted, tracking his movements with professional assessment. He's altering spatial relationships rather than accelerating through fixed space. The dark matter is allowing him to manipulate the dimensional membrane, Charmcaster confirmed, her magical senses perceiving aspects invisible to conventional instrumentation. Essentially creating localized wormholes between points. Julie's fingers flew across her interface, adjusting monitoring parameters. The energy cost should be astronomical, but ease. Drawing power directly from the dark matter itself. It's self-sustaining as long as the transformation holds. Dark XLR8 completed the obstacle course in microseconds, processing the exchange between his teammates with interest. The enhanced form allowed him to experience time at a different rate, their conversation unfolding in what felt like comfortable slowness rather than the frantic delay he normally experienced in speedster form. The applications extend beyond simple transportation, he explained, his voice carrying harmonics that vibrated across dimensional boundaries. I can create elective spatial distortions that affect only specified targets. To demonstrate, Dark XLR8 generated a localized fold around a specific holographic barrier. The object appeared to compress from 3 dimensions into 2 before vanishing entirely, not destroyed but temporarily phased into an adjacent dimensional pocket. That's. Julie paused, recalibrating her instruments. That's dimensional displacement. You've temporarily removed it from our reality. Can you bring it back? Kai asked, the tactical implications immediately apparent. Dark XLR8 reversed the mathematical equation, and the barrier reappeared precisely where it had been. The displacement duration depends on the complexity of the object and the stability of the pocket dimension. Inanimate objects are simpler than living organisms. Could you use this to close the rifts being created by the Void Collective? Charmcaster asked, magical calculations already forming around her fingertips. Not directly, Dark XLR8 Rep. Lied after considering the mathematical probabilities. Their rifts are engineered with specific countermeasures against conventional closure attempts. However, he paused, cosmic calculations flowing through his consciousness. This form could potentially redirect their dimensional coordinates, essentially rerouting their breach points to less strategically valuable locations. Kai's eyes narrowed with tactical interest. Buying us time and disrupting their geometric pattern around Bellwood. Exactly. Try another transformation, Julie suggested, saving the data from this demonstration. We should establish baselines for at least 3 forms before attempting combined applications. The reversal felt like collapsing from multidimensional awareness back into limited human perception. Ben took a moment to readjust. Noting that the aftereffects of transformation lingered longer than usual, cosmic calculations continuing to process in his human mind for several seconds after returning to baseline. That was different, he managed, rolling his shoulders as the sensation gradually faded. I retained more awareness of what I was doing than usual. Normally with XLR8, I experience the speed instinctively. With Dark XLR8, I understood the mathematical principles behind every spatial manipulation. The dark matter is enhancing cognitive integration between your consciousness and the transformation. Julie observed, studying comparative brainwave patterns. The boundary between Ben Tennyson and alien form is becoming more permeable. Is that dangerous? Kai asked directly, concern evident beneath her professional demeanor. Depends on your definition of dangerous, Charmcaster replied before Julie could answer. Greater integration means greater control and understanding, but also greater influence flowing both ways. The transformations will become more like Ben, but Ben will also become more like the transformations. The implications hung in the air, unspoken. Concerns about how these changes might alter him fundamentally. Ben felt their attention with heightened awareness, noting the subtle differences in their reactions. Julie's scientific curiosity tempered by personal concern. Kai's tactical assessment colored by protective instinct. Charmcaster's magical understanding accompanied by first-hand experience with power's corrupting influence. Let's try something with different applications, he suggested, cycling through the transformed roster. 4 Arms has always been straightforward, pure strength and durability. Let's see what dark matter adds to the equation. The transformation flowed more smoothly this time, his consciousness adapting more readily to the dimensional translation. Where 4 Arms had always been about physical power, RK 4 Arms manifested with strength that transcended conventional physical limitations. His 4 arms now exhibited a deep violet coloration with cosmic patterns flowing beneath the skin. More significantly, the form radiated gravitational presence, as though his mass extended beyond normal 3-dimensional constraints. Dark 4 Arms, he announced, his voice deeper and carrying harmonic ovae. Are tones that made the air vibrate sympathetically. This feels substantial. Your gravitational signature is off the charts, Julie reported, adjusting her sensors. You're generating localized gravitational fields that extend beyond your physical form. Kai initiated a strength assessment protocol. The chamber produced a series of increasingly massive objects, each designed to test different aspects of strength and durability. Dark 4 Arms approached the first, a reinforced titanium cube weighing approximately 2 tons. When he reached for it, something unexpected happened. Rather than merely lifting with physical strength, Dark 4 Arms exerted gravitational influence before making contact. The cube began rising before his hands actually touched it, responding to directed gravitational manipulation. Fascinating, Charmcaster observed, magical senses perceiving the underlying mechanics. He's not just stronger, he's manipulating the fundamental forces that define physical interaction. Dark 4 Arms completed the demonstration by compressing the titanium cube between 2 hands, not through brute force but by increasing the gravitational constant within the object itself. The metal collapsed inward, its atomic structure compacting under forces that defied standard physics. The applications extend beyond offensive capabilities, he explained, allowing the crushed metal to orbit around him in a controlled gravitational field. I can create localized gravity wells to contain threats, establish gravitational barriers against incoming attacks, or manipulate the effective mass of objects or opponents. Try the barrier concept, Kai suggested, programming a combat simulation. Holographic projectiles launched from multiple directions, converging on Dark 4 Arms' position. With mathematical precision, he established gravitational distortion fields at strategic points around himself. The incoming projectiles didn't simply stop, their trajectories bent around him in elegant curved paths. Some even entering stable orbits before he dismissed the fields, allowing them to clatter harmlessly to the floor. That would work against physical attacks, Julie noted, analyzing the data. But what about energy-based assaults or dimensional effects? Dark Forearms considered this, cosmic calculations flowing through his enhanced consciousness. By extending the gravitational influence into adjacent dimensional spaces, I could potentially affect even non-physical attacks. Energy and dimensional effects still interact with space-time, which means they're subject to gravitational influence. To demonstrate, he focused on creating a more complex gravitational field, one that extended fractionally into neighboring dimensional spaces. The chamber's sensors detected the expansion, recording how the influence transcended conventional three-dimensional limitations. He's right, Charmcaster confirmed, her magical perception allowing her to see what the instruments measured. The gravitational effect exists partially outside our dimension. It could theoretically interact with interdimensional energies, which makes this form valuable against the Void Collective's breach attempts. Kai concluded, tactical mind already mapping applications. The transformation reversed, returning Ben to human form with another lingering period of enhanced awareness. This time, he felt gravitational equations continuing to process in his mind, allowing him momentary perception of the subtle gravitational interactions between objects in the room. The aftereffects are definitely getting stronger, he noted, watching as Julie recorded the observation. I'm retaining aspects of the transformation's perception longer after reverting. Your neural pathways are adapting, Julie explained, displaying comparative brain scans, creating more permanent connections to accommodate the enhanced cognitive processing. It's like your brain is rebuilding itself to handle the increased informational load. Is that reversible? Kai asked directly, cutting to the heart of the concern. Julie hesitated. Theoretically, yes, but the longer and more frequently you transform, the more established these pathways become. You're evolving, Charmcaster stated simply. The dark matter is acting as a catalyst for capabilities that existed in potential but not in expression. Ben absorbed this information with surprising calm. The cosmic awareness that had been growing steadily since his first contact with the dark matter allowed him to approach the situation with respective beyond immediate human concerns. One more transformation, he decided, cycling through the roster again. Something with sensory capabilities. Wildmutt has always provided enhanced percept. Ion. Let's see what dark matter does with that. The transformation felt more natural still, his consciousness expanding into perceptual domains that transcended conventional sensory limitations. Dark. Wildmutt retained the quadrupedal form of the original but now featured a deep midnight coloration with cosmic patterns that shifted continuously across his skin. Most significantly, the usual therma, L and olfactory sensors had evolved into something far more comprehensive, organs that perceived across dimensional boundaries. Where Wildmutt experienced the world primarily through smell and heat detection, Dark Wildmutt perceived reality as interlocking fields of probability and information. Objects weren't merely physical presences but complex equations of atomic structure, temporal state, and dimensional positioning. Living beings appeared as intricate patterns of biological processes, emotional states, and potential actions cascading through time. His sensory capabilities have completely transformed, Julie reported, struggling to quantify what her instruments were detecting. He's perceiving information that shouldn't be accessible through conventional means. It's not just enhanced senses, Charmcaster observed, her magical perception allowing better understanding of what was happening. He's perceiving dimensional strata, seeing through the layers of reality that exist simultaneously in the same space. Dark Wildmutt moved around the chamber, experiencing his surroundings in ways that defied simple description. He could perceive the subtle dimensional thinning around Charmcaster's magical wards, the complex technological patterns of Julie's monitoring systems, the disciplined emotional and mental state that defined Kai's presence. Most significantly, he could court faint traces of dimensional disturbance throughout the facility, echoes of the rifts that had been appearing across Bellwood. Following these traces, Dark Wildmutt moved to a seemingly unremarkable section of wall and indicated it with unmistakable certainty. What is it? Kai asked, approaching cautiously. The transformation reversed, leaving Ben momentarily overwhelmed as his human senses struggled to process the lingering multidimensional awareness. Dimensional scarring, he explained once he could speak, pointing to the wall that appeared perfectly normal to conventional perception. This location experienced a micro-rift approximately 6 hours ago. It sealed itself, but left a trace in the dimensional fabric, like scar tissue. Julie immediately directed her scanners toward the indicated area. He's right. There's a minuscule disturbance in the quantum field structure. It's virtually undetectable with standard equipment. Which means the Void Collective has already probed this facility, Kai concluded grimly. They know where we are. Not necessarily, Charmcaster countered, examining the dimensional scar with magical senses. This was a passive event, not an engineered breach. More like dimensional bleed-through caused by the increasing instability of the barriers. Either way, it confirms what we suspected, Ben said, the cosmic awareness lingering strongly after this transformation. The boundaries between dimensions are weakening throughout Bellwood. The geometric pattern of rifts isn't just for strategic positioning, it's creating a cascading failure of dimensional integrity. The implications settled heavily on the group. Julie returned to her instruments, analyzing the new data with focused intensity. Kai moved to the communication console, U.P. dating Plumber headquarters on their findings. Charmcaster reinforced the magical wards around the detected weak point, muttering incantations that shimmered with protective energy. Ben watched them work, struck again by how effectively their different approaches complemented each other. The cosmic perspective provided by the dark matter Omnitrix allowed him to see patterns in their interactions that might otherwise remain invisible. How Julie's scientific precision created foundations for Charmcaster's magical applications, how Kai's tactical assessment provided practical direction for theoretical discoveries. We need to test actual combat application, he decided, drawing their attention back to the immediate task. Controlled transformation in response to simulated threats from the Void Collective. Kai nodded in agreement. I've programmed combat scenarios based on what we know about synaptic and theoretical models of other collective entities. My monitoring systems can track K transformation efficiency and energy consumption during combat conditions, Julie added. And I can simulate dimensional disruptions similar to their breach techniques. Charmcaster completed the preparation. Testing your ability to counter their specific approach to reality manipulation. As they prepared the simulation, Ben felt the dark matter Omnitrix pulse with what almost seemed like anticipation. The device was learning alongside him, adapting to each transformation and retaining data across multiple forms. The integration between his consciousness and the transformed aliens was growing more seamless with each experience. The training session extended for hours, each transformation providing new insights into the capabilities and limitations of dark matter enhancement. Dark Heia T-Blast could generate flames that burned across dimensional boundaries, affecting entities that existed partially outside conventional reality. Dark Diamond Head created crystalline structures that served as dimensional anchors, stabilizing weakened points in the fabric of space-time. Dark Gray Matter's intelligence expanded beyond mere cognitive processing into mathematical comprehension of cosmic constants. Throughout it all, the three women observed, analyzed, and adapted their understanding, scientific, magical, and tactical perspectives, building toward a comprehensive approach to the threat they faced. As the session concluded, Ben reverted to human form after a final transformation, fatigue evident despite the exhilaration of discovery. The astronomical patterns extending from the dark matter Omnitrix had spread further up his arm, now reaching his shoulder with intricate cosmic designs. The integration is accelerating, Julie noted with scientific concern as she scanned the expanded patterns. The dark matter is establishing deeper connections to your nervous system with each transformation. Is it harmful? Kai asked directly, voicing the question they had all been considering. Not in conventional terms, Julie replied after reviewing the data. His cellular structure shows no signs of damage or degradation. In fact, there's evidence of enhanced repair mechanisms and optimized neural pathways. The real question isn't physical harm, Charmcaster interjected, magical perception focused on subtler changes. It's identity preservation. The more integrated the dark matter becomes, the more your consciousness expands beyond human limitations. That kind of expansion changes perspective, priorities, even fundamental values. Ben considered this with surprising equanimity. I've been transforming into aliens for more than half my life. My perspective has never been entirely human. This is different, Charmcaster insisted. Alien forms provide temporary alterations in perception. The dark matter is creating permanent changes in how your consciousness interfaces with reality itself. A moment of silence followed as they all processed the implications. The training session had demonstrated remarkable capabilities, but also highlighted the accelerating transformation Ben was undergoing, not just of the Omnitrix but of himself. "We should rest," Kai finally suggested. Practical concerns asserting themselves. "We've gathered sufficient baseline data for now, and everyone needs recovery time before the next phase of preparation." "Agreed," Julie said, already backing up the collected data to secure servers. "I need to analyze these results thoroughly before we attempt more advanced applications. And I should consult additional references from Legerdemain," Charmcaster added. "There are protective rituals that might help stabilize the integration process." As they prepared to conclude the session, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Red emergency lighting bathed the chamber as the central communications system activated automatically. "Multiple dimensional breaches detected," the automated system announced. "Perimeter compromised. Unknown entities emerging at breach points." Kai moved immediately to the tactical display, assessing the situation with professional efficiency. 7 distinct breaches within the facility perimeter. Non-random distribution. They're creating a containment pattern around sublevel 5. They're targeting us specifically, Ben realized, the dark matter Omnitrix pulsing with agitated energy. Or more likely, targeting me. Julie's fingers flew across her interface, accessing security feeds. "These aren't the same as previous breaches. The energy signature is different, less controlled, more chaotic. Because they're not coming from the Void Collective," Charmcaster stated with certainty, her magical senses perceiving what the instruments detected. "These are from the Null Void." The security feeds confirmed her assessment. Emerging from the swirling rifts were entities familiar to anyone with plumber experience, twisted creatures native to the dimensional prison known as the Null Void. Vulpimancers with mutated features stalked the upper levels. Energy-based megafuts sparked through the facility's electrical systems. Most concerning were the unmistakable silhouettes of Null Guardians, the predatory enforcers that patrolled the prison dimension. "The Null Void exists adjacent to the space between dimensions," Ben explained, cosmic awareness providing deeper understanding than he'd previously possessed about the prison realm. "The weakening barriers are allowing its denizens to break through. Which means the Void Collective's activities are having cascading effects across multiple dimensional planes," Julie concluded, rapidly adjusting defensive systems. "Not just our reality is at risk." "Tactical assessment," Kai asked, already arming herself with a advanced plumber weaponry from a nearby locker. "The facility's automated defenses will slow them down, but not stop them," Julie replied, studying the breach patterns. "Based on their distribution, we have approximately 7 minutes before they converge on this location. I can establish temporary magical barriers," Charmcaster offered, already drawing components from her pouches. "But sustaining protection across multiple points will drain my reserves quickly." "We don't hide," Ben decided, studying the tactical display with strategic focus that would have surprised his younger self. "We address the source directly. The creatures aren't the primary threat, the breaches are. If we close the rifts, we cut off their access." "Agreed," Kai said with professional approval. "Containing the creatures would be treating symptoms, not the cause. We need a coordinated approach," Julie added, programming defensive measures to buy them time. "Ben can address the rifts directly while we handle any creatures that have already emerged. I'll establish a mobile ward around our group," Charmcaster said, already weaving protective magic. "Protection that moves with us as we address each breach point." Ben studied the transformed alien roster, considering options with strategic precision. Dark Diamond Head for the initial response. The crystalline structures can temporarily stabilize dimensional weak points. "Start with the breach on sublevel 4, Kai directed, checking her weapon systems. "It's the largest and most unstable based on these readings. Ship can provide mobile defense while we move between locations," Julie added as the galvanic mechamorph morphed into combat configuration around her, creating adaptive armor that enhanced her natural abilities. They moved with practiced efficiency, exiting the training chamber as a coordinated unit. The facility's emergency systems had initiated lockdown protocols, sealing sections where breaches had been detected. Using override codes, Kai navigated them through security checkpoints toward the nearest dimensional rift. The sounds of chaos echoed through the corridors, inhuman shrieks and growls mingling with the discharge of automated defense systems. Charmcaster maintained a shimmering barrier of magical energy around the group, deflecting debris and scanning ahead for threats as they approached Sublevel 4. The dimensional breach dominated the central corridor, a swirling vortex of reddish energy that contrasted sharply with the midnight purple of true dark matter rifts. Unlike the mathematically precise tiers created by the Void Collective, this portal pulsed with chaotic, unstable energy. More concerning were the creatures that continued to emerge, a steady stream of null void denizens pouring into the facility with feral determination. The automated defense systems fired continuously, barely containing the onslaught. "Cover me," Ben said, activating the dark matter Omnitrix. The transformation flowed smoothly, his consciousness expanding into the crystalline awareness of Dark Diamondhead. Unlike the standard version, this form featured deep violet crystal structures with astronomical TTERNS flowing beneath the translucent surface. Most significantly, the crystals themselves existed partially across dimensional boundaries, capable of interacting with the fabric of reality at a fundamental level. "I need direct access to the breach," Dark Diamondhead announced, his voice resonating with crystalline harmonics. "On it," Kai replied, taking precise aim at the creatures nearest the rift. Her plumber weapon fired concentrated energy bursts that struck with impressive accuracy, clearing a path through the emerging entities. Julie directed Ship to provide covering fire from multiple angles simultaneously, the adaptive mechamorph technology creating a barrage of suppressing fire that further contained the threat. Meanwhile, Charmcaster extended her magical protection around Dark Diamondhead specifically, creating a corridor of arcane energy that shielded him as he approached the breach. Dark Diamondhead reached the dimensional rift, placing crystalline hands directly into the swirling energy. Rather than manipulating the breach from outside, he began generating specialized crystal structures that extended into the rift itself, dimensional anchors that spanned the bound area between normal space and the null void. "The dimensional fabric is severely weakened in this location," he reported, cosmic awareness perceiving the structural damage. "The barrier between real IEs is approximately 27% of normal integrity. Can you close it?" Julie asked, continuing to coordinate defensive fire with Ship. "Not conventionally," Dark Diamondhead replied, adjusting his apro. ACH's cosmic calculations flowed through his crystalline consciousness. "But I can restructure the boundary parameters." The crystal structures extending into the rift began to pulse with midnight energy, drawing on the dark matter integrated throughout his form. Unlike brute force closure, Dark Diamondhead was essentially reweaving the dimensional fabric, creating a crystalline lattice that reinforced the natural boundary between realities. "He's actually repairing the dimensional membrane," Charmcaster observed with magical perception that allowed her to see what conventional senses couldn't. Using the dark matter to regenerate the natural barrier. The breach gradually stabilized, its chaotic pulsing resolving into more orderly energy patterns before beginning to contract. Dark Diamondhead maintained the crystalline framework until the rift collapsed entirely, leaving only a faint dimensional scar where it had been. "One down, 6 to go," Kai stated, already consulting the tactical display for the next target. Sublevel 2 has 2 breaches in close proximity. They proceeded through the facility, addressing each breach systematically. Dark Diamondhead's ability to restructure dimensional boundaries proved remarkably effective, though each closure required increasingly complex crystal lattices as the overall dimensional integrity throughout the facility continued to deteriorate. The creatures that had already emerged proved challenging but manageable. Kai's combat expertise and advanced weaponry dispatched the more aggressive entities with efficient precision. Julie and Ship provided adaptive technological countermeasures, especially effective against the energy-based threats. Charmcaster's magic contained the more dimensionally unstable creatures, preventing them from phasing through conventional barriers. As they approached the final breach on the ground level, Ben reverted to human form momentarily, the extended transformation having taxed even the enhanced capabilities of the dark matter Omnitrix. "The device needs time to recalibrate," he explained, examining the transformed Omnitrix as it pulsed with regenerating energy. "Each dimensional IR is drawing heavily on its dark matter reserves. We can handle the remaining creatures," Kai assured him, reloading her weapon with practiced efficiency. "Focus on recovering enough energy for the final breach." The ground-level breach had allowed a particularly concerning entity to emerge, a mature null guardian that had already damaged significant portions of the facility's infrastructure. The serpentine predator circled the central atrium, its multiple tentacle-like appendages lashing out at automated defense systems. That's going to require coordinated effort, Julie assessed, ship, reconfiguring around her into more heavily armored form. Null guardians can absorb substantial energy before being incapacitated. I can contain it briefly, Charmcaster offered, magical energy gathering around her hands. But not while maintaining our mobile protection barrier. We don't need the barrier for this, Kai decided, tactical mind formulating a strategy. Julie and I will draw its attention from opposite directions. Charmcaster, when it's distracted, bind it with everything you've got. The plan executed with impressive coordination. Kai fired precise shots at the creature's sensory organs while Julie directed ship to create technological restraints around its lower appendages. When the Null Guardian focused on these immediate threats, Charmcaster unleashed a complex bind-ing spell that encased the creature in bands of arcane energy. Ben watched their teamwork with genuine appreciation, noting how naturally they had fallen into complementary roles. More significantly, he observed the battle with perception that transcended normal human limitations, cosmic awareness allowing him to see patterns of movement, energy, and probability that would have been invisible to him weeks ago. The dark matter Omnitrix pulsed with renewed energy, signaling readiness for the final transformation. The alien roster appeared in holographic display, showing forms now fully integrated with dark matter enhancements. For the final breach, we need something with comprehensive dimensional manipulation capabilities, Ben decided, selecting a form he had yet to use in its enhanced state. Alien X should provide maximum control over the dimensional repair process. The three women exchanged concerned glances at his choice. Alien X had always represented both tremendous potential and significant risk, a celestial sapien with reality-altering capabilities but constrained by the multiple personalities that required consensus before acting. Are you sure that's wise? Julie asked, scientific caution evident in her tone. The dark matter integration might have unpredictable effects on Alien X's consensus mechanism. That's exactly why it's necessary, Ben replied with confidence born of cosmic understanding. The dimensional damage is becoming exponential. We need something that can address the root problem, not just the symptoms. Before further discussion could occur, the Null Guardian broke partially free from Charmcaster's magical restraints, one tentacle lashing out toward Ben with predatory speed. Kai intercepted the attack with remarkable reflexes, firing a precision shot that severed the appendage mid-strike. Whatever you're doing, do it now, she ordered, already repositioning for the creature's next attack. Ben activated the transformation without further hesitation. The process felt fundamentally different from any previous experience with Alien X, his consciousness expanding not merely into a different perspective but into a multidimensional street of awareness that transcended conventional reality. Dark Alien X manifested with midnight radiance, cosmic patterns flowing across the obsidian surface of his form. Stars and galaxies swirled within his silhouette, representing not merely decorative elements but actual cosmic domains encompassed within his awareness. Most significantly, the transformation lacked the usual paralysis caused by conflicting personalities requiring consensus. The personalities have integrated, Dark Alien X announced, his voice resonating across dimensional boundaries. Serena, Bellicus, and my consciousness exist in harmonic alignment rather than opposition. That's unprecedented, Charmcaster observed, magical senses overwhelmed by the cosmic presence before her. The dark matter has restructured. The fundamental nature of the transformation, Julie added, her instruments struggling to quantify what they were detecting. Instead of separate personalities requiring consensus, they exist as aspects of a unified consciousness. Dark Alien X turned his attention to the dimensional breach, perceiving not merely the local rift but the entire pattern of dimensional damage extending throughout Bellwood and beyond. Through this enhanced form, Ben could see the mathematical precision behind what had appeared to be chaotic deterioration, the calculated weakening of reality's fundamental structure. The Void Collective's strategy becomes clear, he stated, cosmic awareness providing unprecedented comprehension. They're not merely creating breaches, they're systematically altering dimensional constants throughout this region of space-time. With a gesture that transcended conventional movement, Dark Alien X addressed not only the immediate breach but the underlying dimensional damage throughout the facility. Reality itself seemed to ripple around him as he rewove the fabric of space-time, restoring proper mathematical relationships between dimensional constants. The Null Guardian and remaining creatures from the Null Void found themselves encapsulated in localized dimensional fields before being systematically returned to their native reality. The breach is closed not through fork, but through perfect restructuring of the dimensional boundaries that had been compromised. Most significantly, Dark Alien X extended this restoration beyond the immediate facility, addressing weak need points throughout Bellwood with mathematical precision. The cosmic calculations required for such comprehensive dimensional manipulation would have been impossible for any conventional intelligence, but flowed naturally through the integrated consciousness of this enhanced form. He's stabilizing the entire dimensional matrix for a 50-mile radius, Charmcaster reported, magical senses perceiving the extent of the effect. Restoring proper separation between dimensional planes. The pattern of rifts around Bellwood is collapsing, Julie confirmed, monitoring global readings. Dimensio. Null integrity is returning to 97% of normal parameters throughout the affected region. Kai maintained tactical vigilance despite the apparent resolution, professional caution preventing premature celebration. Will this prevent further breaches? Not permanently, Dark Alien X replied, cosmic voice resonating with multidimensional harmonics. I've restored the natural barriers, but the Void Collective will adapt their approach. They'll likely shift to more precisely targeted breaches rather than the broad-spectrum weakening they've attempted thus far. The transformation reversed, returning Ben to human form with a cascading wave of cosmic energy that temporarily illuminated the facility with midnight radiance. Unlike previous reversions, this transition left him standing steady and clear-eyed. The cosmic awareness remaining strongly present even in human form. Most notably, the astronomical patterns had now spread across his entire upper body, intricate cosmic designs visible beneath his shirt, extending up his neck to the edge of his jawline. The integration is accelerating dramatically, Julie noted with scientific concern, scanning the expanded patterns. The dark matter has established connections throughout your central nervous system. How do you feel? Kai asked directly, practical concerns taking precedence over theoretical implications. Ben considered the question thoughtfully. More complete, somehow. Like I've been perceiving reality through a narrow aperture all my life, and it's finally opening wider. He met their concerned gazes with reassuring clarity. I'm still me, just more. That's exactly what concerns me, Charmcaster stated bluntly. Power of this magnitude changes perspective in ways that are difficult to recognize from within the transformation itself. Which is why I have the three of you, Ben replied with simple conviction. Different perspectives keeping me grounded in different ways. The facility's emergency systems powered down as the dimensional threats receded, returning environmental controls to normal operations. The aftermath of battle was evident throughout the structure, damaged infrastructure, disabled defense systems. Residual energy signatures from multiple forms of combat. Plumber HQ reports similar dimensional stabilization throughout Bellwood, Kai announced, reviewing incoming communications. Whatever you did affected the entire region. The question is how the Void Collective will respond, Julie said, already analyzing data from the encounter. This represents a significant setback to their established strategy. They'll adapt, Ben stated with certainty born of cosmic insight. This was never their only approach, just the initial phase of a multi-dimensional calculation. As if confirming his assessment, a localized distortion manifested in the center of the atrium, different from both the chaotic null-void breaches and the mathematical precision of standard void collective rifts. This manifestation possessed elements of both calculated chaos, structured unpredictability. From the distortion emerged not a physical entity but a projection, a holographic representation of synaptic. The cerebrocrustacean mathematician they had encountered previously. Impressive countermeasures, Benjamin Tennyson, the projection stated, compound eyes studying Ben with analytical interest. The probability of your successful integration with dark matter capabilities was significantly underestimated in our initial calculations. Your dimensional weakening strategy has failed, Ben replied evenly, feeling the dark matter Omnitrix pulse in response to the collective representative. Your attempts to collapse the barriers between realities won't succeed. Failure is a subjective, assessment based on incomplete understanding of objectives, Synaptic responded with mathematical precision. The observed restoration of dimensional integrity throughout the Bellwood region provides valuable data regarding the specific nature of your dark matter manipulation capabilities. The implication was clear. Their apparent victory had served the collective's purposes by revealing the extent of Ben's developing abilities. Why Bellwood specifically? Kai demanded, tactical mind seeking strategic understanding. What significance does this location hold for your calculations? Dime. Ncional nexus points exist where probability fields naturally converge, the projection explained with clinical detachment. The region designated, Bellwood, in your limited three-dimensional percepti. On contains 17 such convergence points, an unusual concentration that supports efficient reality integration. You mean efficient reality destruction, Charmcaster countered, magical defenses. Prepared despite addressing a mere projection. Destruction implies absence of purpose, Synaptic corrected. The Void Collective seeks mathematical perfection through unified dimensional expression. Current segregation of realities represents inefficient distribution of cosmic potential. And what happens to the beings that exist within those separate realities? Julie challenged, scientific ethics evident in her tone. Trillions of lives across countless dimensions would be fundamentally altered or destroyed. Individual consciousness would be recalculated within the integrated framework. The projection replied without concern. Inefficient redundancies would be eliminated, optimal expressions preserved. Translation. Mass extinction with a few specimens kept in your cosmic zoo, Ben interpreted. Cosmic awareness allowing him to perceive the cold calculation behind the seemingly academic explanation. Your understanding continues to evolve beyond baseline human limitations. Synaptic observed with what almost seemed like approval. The dark matter integration proceeds as theoretically predicted, if not according to our preferred timetable. The statement carried ominous implications, that Ben's transformation was itself part of some larger calculation by the Void Collective. What exactly is your interest in my integration? He asked directly, cosmic awareness debt, acting mathematical patterns beneath the projection's seemingly straightforward appearance. The Omnitrix has always represented a probability anomaly within cosmic calculations, Synaptic explained. Its capacity for genetic recombination creates potential for evolutionary pathways that defy standard mathematical progression. With dark matter enhancement, this anomalous potential expands exponentially. You're afraid of what I might become, Ben realized, understanding crystallizing through cosmic perception. Fear is an emotional response unsuitable for mathematical entities, the projection corrected. Your potential represents a variable requiring careful calculation within our broader integration protocols. Before further exchange could occur, the projection flickered and dissolved. Ved as Charmcaster completed a complex magical gesture that disrupted the dimensional frequency carrying the transmission. They've been monitoring us this entire time, she explained, examining residual magical traces. This projection was merely the visible manifestation of ongoing observation. Which means everything we've learned, they've learned, Kai concluded with tactical concern. Why capability Ben has demonstrated has been analyzed and factored into their calculations. Not quite everything, Julie countered, examining her instruments. The projection was established after Dark Alien X reverted. They missed direct observation of his most powerful transformation. Small advantage, but we'll take it, Ben decided, the cosmic awareness allowing strategic assessment beyond his typical capabilities. More concerning is the implication that my integration with the dark matter might somehow factor into their larger plans. They're calculating probabilities, Julie noted. Scientific mind processing the exchange. Your actions represent variables they're attempting to account for, not direct components of their strategy. Unless that's exactly what they want us to believe, Kai suggested. Tactical paranoia a professional asset in her line of work. Misdirection would be a logical approach when dealing with an opponent of unknown capabilities. Charmcaster had gone quiet, magical senses focused on something beyond conventional perception. After a moment of intense concentration, she spoke with uncharacteristic uncertainty. There's something else, something beneath the mathematical precision they present. Her violet eyes met Ben's with troubled intensity. I sensed hunger. Not calculated integration but consuming desire. Whatever their stated objectives, the Void Collective covets this reality and others with something closer to primal need than cosmic mathematics. The observation hung in the air, disturbing in its implications. The idea that entities of seemingly pure mathematical calculation might harbor emotions as fundamental as hunger suggested complexities beyond their apparent nature. We need to understand them better, Ben decided. Cosmic perspective allowing him to see patterns connecting disparate elements of their encounters. Their true nature, their origins, and most importantly, their actual limitations. The null void incursion was unexpected, Julie observed, reviewing data from the encounter. Their dimensional weakening had consequences they didn't apparently anticipate. Which means they don't have perfect calculation of interdimensional effects. Kai concluded, tactical mind identifying potential weaknesses. Their mathematics has blind spots. All entities have blind spots, Charmcaster added with certainty born of magical understanding. Even those that exist across multiple dimensions simultaneously. The question is finding where perception fails and exploiting the resulting vulnerabilities. Ben felt the dark matter Omnitrix pulse with what seemed like agreement, a resonance between his thoughts and the cosmic awareness flowing from the transformed device. The astronomical patterns across his skin shifted subtly, forming new configurations that reflected evolving understanding. We start by taking the initiative, he decided, strategic clarity emerging from cosmic perspective. They've been testing us, probing for information. It's time we did the same to them. How exactly do we probe a collective of interdimensional mathematicians? Julie asked, scientific skepticism tempering her evident interest. By accessing the space between dimensions directly, Ben replied, studying the transformed alien roster with new purpose. The dark matter enhancements allow certain forms to perceive and potentially navigate the void between realities. If we can observe their operations directly, we gain understanding they don't expect us to have. That's incredibly dangerous, Charmcaster warned. Magical knowledge providing clear understanding of the risks. The void between dimensions isn't merely empty space, it's a domain with its own properties and potential hazards. Entities Saint there that make the Void Collective seem straightforward by comparison. Which is why we prepare thoroughly, Kai stated, professional assessment already mapping potential approaches. Controlled exposure with multiple redundant safety measures and extraction protocols. I can configure monitoring systems to maintain contact across dimensional boundaries, Julie offered, scientific mind engaging with the technical challenges. Ship's galvanic mechamorph properties allow for adaptive communication across unusual energy states. And I can establish magical anchors to ensure your consciousness remains tethered to this reality. Charmcaster added, already considering specific ritual components. Preventing potential disassociation during interdimensional transit. Ben observed their responses with deepening appreciation for how naturally they formed complementary approaches to problems. The cosmic perspective provided by the dark matter Omnitrix revealed mathematical elegance in their interactions, different methodologies creating solution spaces that none could achieve individually. More significantly, he recognized something beyond mere professional cooperation. Each woman engaged with the challenge not simply as an abstract problem but with evident concern for his well-being alongside broader implications. Their different relationships with him, complex histories involving trust, conflict, respect, and unresolved tensions, created a dynamic that transcended conventional teamwork. We'll need time to prepare properly, he acknowledged, recognizing both the necessity and wisdom of their caution. The facility needs repairs, and we all need recovery time after this encounter. Agreed, Kai said, already coordinating with plumber teams for security reinforcement. Quote, we establish watch rotations and use the next 24 hours for thorough preparation. I'll need to retrieve additional components from my workshop in Legerdemain, Charmcaster noted, magical calculations already forming around her fingertips. Proper dimensional anchoring requires specialized materials. And I'll reconfigure the monitoring systems based on what we've learned about the dark matter's dimensional properties. Julie added, ship chirping agreement as he returned to his compact form beside her. As they dispersed to their respective preparations, Ben remained in the atrium briefly, studying the space where Synaptic's projection had manifested. The cosmic awareness flowing from the dark matter Omnitrix allowed him to perceive residual mathematical patterns in the diamond's ional fabric, echoes of the collective's presence that lingered like fingerprints on reality itself. What troubled him most wasn't the technical challenge they faced, but the personal implications of his accelerating transformation. The astronomical patterns extending across his body represented physical manifestation of deeper changes occurring within his consciousness. Each transformation integrated more fully with his awareness. Each reversion left more cosmic understanding lingering in his human perception. Yet alongside this concern was growing certainty that the process, whatever its ultimate destination, was necessary. The cosmic perspective revealed patterns of meaning and connection that transcended conventional human understanding, insights essential for confronting entities that operated beyond traditional dimensional limitations. Most significantly, he recognized that whatever he was becoming, he wasn't facing the transformation alone. The three extraordinary women who had joined this struggle brought perspectives that anchored him in different but equally vital ways: Julie's scientific precision, Kai's tactical pragmatism, and Charmcaster's magical understanding creating a balanced framework for his expanding awareness. As he finally left the atrium to begin his own preparations, the dark matter Omnitrix pulsed with steady rhythm, synchronizing with his heartbeat in perfect mathematical harmony. Whatever changes awaited, whatever challenges the Void Collective presented, the path forward would be navigated together, science, magic, and tactical expertise complementing cosmic awareness in ways the calculating entities had failed to anticipate. In their perfect mathematics, the collective had overlooked the most unpredictable variable of all: the connections between individuals that transcended logical calculation. As Ben joined the others in preparation for their counter-offensive, he carried this understanding not merely as tactical advantage but as fundamental truth illuminated by cosmic perspective. The shadows cast by interdimensional threats would be met with light from multiple sources: technological brilliance, magical insight, tactical precision, and the transformed power of the dark matter Omnitrix working in harmony against the calculated dissolution of reality itself. Chapter 2 End. The end. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.